I don't want to exclude anybody who is transitioning from the DDA meeting, but let's call the meeting to order. And Amanda, will you do the virtual meetings roll call, please?
Yes, so sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yes, if you can just as a reminder state where your full name and where you're participating from this morning, either the city or the county and the state. Mr. Baldwin?
Jim Baldwin, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Great. Mr. Beal?
Sean Beal, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Great. Mayor Bliss?
Rosalind Bliss, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Great. Ms. Bootson?
Eliana Bootson, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Ms. Deering?
Deidre Deering, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Ms. Dunn?
K.M. Dunn, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Ms. Geetson?
Jane Geetson, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And Mr. Royce?
Mark Royce, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Mr. Talon?
Jim Talon, participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And Mr. Nguyen? He might have still be on his break.
All right. Well, thank you all for your patience and for joining us today. We appreciate your time and your commitment to the Monroe North TIFA. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from March 10. And they were the minutes were sent out in the packet. I hope you had a chance to review them. If I could have a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Did you catch that, Amanda?
No, I didn't. Who was that? Two female voices, I think.
Jane made the motion.
Thank
I'll
you.
support.
Thank you.
Deidre.
Yep.
Okay, are there any questions or clarifications on the minutes from anyone? So then I will ask if anyone has any dissenting votes, correct, to not approve the minutes. So I will ask that. Is anyone vote nay or dissenting from the minutes? And I'll give a pause. And if we hear none, then we will assume it's passed. Any dissenting votes? All right, thank you. The minutes are accepted and the motion is passed. So the next item on the agenda is the financials from March 31 of 2021. Do we have Ms. Chapman to present?
Ms. Chapman is unfortunately unable to join us.
Okay.
So I can do my best to wear the financial hat here. As usual, statements were included in your packet. I think all pretty standard activities for the for March 30 through March 31, I should say. But I'm happy to take any questions that you all might have. Otherwise, we would ask that you approve Statement C, which serves as your warrant.
Are there any questions to begin with?
The motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Nguyen, could you please share with us where you're participating from remotely this morning?
Of course, this is Rick Nguyen. I'm participating remotely from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Do we have a support for his motion?
This is Jane Geetson. I'll support.
Thank you, Jane. Are there any questions or clarifications that anyone would like for the Statement C? All right, then I will call for any dissenting votes for not approving the motion. Hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the community engagement for the Grand River work. And Andy, are you on to present this one?
I am. Can you all hear me all right?
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning. Yeah. Yeah, so last month, the TIFA board, you might all remember, endorsed a governance model to help lead the revitalization of the Grand River Corridor. We also approved some funding to continue our work with Kathy Blaha, who's kind of our governance guru, around starting to organize the nonprofit component of that model. And we're starting to think about putting some other pieces in place to support that incubation. That's what we wanted to talk to you about this morning. The next step we want to get to work on is really developing a proactive community engagement program that supports the startup of that nonprofit. As we were going through the exploratory governance conversations, there was really a strong desire, both from the leadership around the committee and some of the initial outreach that we did with the community, to really build a nonprofit agency that serves as this active and responsive civic connector, doing a lot of work building awareness of the river projects, promoting collaboration, soliciting ideas and gaining feedback, particularly when we get to this point around potential programs, future site designs, and other opportunities that are going to present through the corridor. We also learned that this idea of being this sort of the civic connector piece is a really important element and best practice to some of the similar projects that we researched across the nation. So we wanted to be really proactive about it. The successful projects really have this philosophy of working with and for citizens and a variety of stakeholder groups. And the goal there is really to create a connected community and constituency, not just to the governance agency and the nonprofit and organization and its work, but probably more importantly, ultimately to the river itself, a connected constituency to the river itself, so that we're really building a welcoming and active place for all Grand Rapidians. So we put it in front of you in your agenda packet, a little scope of work to get started on designing this community engagement program. We initiated this work a little bit last year with some modest DDA funding and support with the Community Catalysts, which is a program of WMCAT and public agency. We started some conversation with about 5 representatives there, really around just sort of framing some of the basic principles and values around a community engagement program. And what we're proposing is to kind of move that work into a phase 2, where we add a few more community catalysts to the conversation, which helps kind of expand our network and reach. And we start thinking more intentionally about the elements of a community engagement program. Who all needs to be involved? What are the key community groups? Building out that database. What are the communication and community relations tactics and strategies that we could use? How are we building in feedback loop systems into the conversation so that we have a more routine community relations and engagement strategy in place? Historically, and this is really nobody's fault because it's a lot of good work and complicated work going on the river, but historically the engagement has been sort of one-off and focused on particular sites or projects. And as we start to look at the corridor, we want to be a little more intentional and proactive about working with community to define what how they would like to be involved in the work moving forward and really building that constituency. So we're asking for $20,000 to support this work. We did envision a little bit of this, I think, in last year's or the current year's, fiscal budget, and we're also anticipating this in the coming budget that Tim will present here in a minute and propose. I would also add that the DDA just approved funding of about $110,000 to support this work as well. So the Monroe North TIFA funds will help support the overall project. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or dive any deeper into any of the items I shared.
Thank you, Andy. Are there questions from the group? All right, then do we have a motion from the board to fund this this request?
Yeah.
This is KM. I will move approval.
Thank you, KM.
I'll support Rick Wynn.
Thank you, Rick. Any discussion, any additional discussion that anyone would like to bring up? All right, is anyone opposed to this motion or dissent from it? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Andy. So the next item is the social zone enhancements. It's hard to say. And Melvin, are you on to present this one?
I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you.
Just wanted to start off and talk about last year. So if you recall, we launched the social zone program with a few of our community partners last year in response to the sort of shifting restrictions, if you will, from the COVID pandemic, and those restrictions and sort of limitations continue on even through this year. And I think it would be fair to say that last year the social zone program was very successful for restaurants and businesses that engaged in it. They were able to seat patrons and be able to operate in many cases at or near their pre-pandemic capacity. And with that continued success, what we're seeing this year is the restaurants that participated last year, some of them are looking to sort of expand their operation, looking to kind of enhance their footprint, and then also having businesses that haven't participated in it last year looking to jump into the program this year, seeing that it was a success last year. In addition to that, knowing that these have been around since last summer, we want to really work to enhance the sort of user experience that patrons that are coming to downtown have. So rather than come downtown and just see a bunch of concrete barriers with some chairs and tables around them, we really want to sort of spice those up, add some color, create some branding opportunities for the social zones. If you remember last year, Monroe Center, Bridge Street, Monroe North all had sort of their own individual branding for the social zone. So looking to continue that, but really do it in a way that kind of stands out more and is a little more permanent. So with that, looking to purchase additional tables and chairs and umbrellas and umbrella stands to really fortify our stock of those elements, as they are very popular, especially umbrellas. That was the hot ticket item of last year. So we want to get on top of getting umbrellas and make sure we have enough of those for everybody. And looking for the TIFA's cost for that would be $10,300. And then for the barriers, we're looking to contract with Lions and Rabbits, who would manage getting all of the artists together, manage the supplies, working directly with businesses to get the barriers painted, getting those things either painted or the vinyl applied onto the barriers. And the TIFA's cost for that would be $5,700, bringing the ask for the social zone enhancements to a not exceed amount of $16,000. And I should note that the DDA supported this effort just earlier today, and their effort was their support was for $80,000, a little bit north of that, to hit up the other social zones out of the TIFA. And with that, I'll take any questions.
So Melvin, this is a project to provide these amenities and the decorating of these barriers throughout the city, not just in Monroe North, but throughout the downtown, correct? Yeah,
so this would be part of a larger project to do all of the social zones, and this specific ask is the TIFA's piece of that.
Perfect, thank you. And I know we discussed on a previous meeting the social zones, and we're they're very popular and were very needed throughout the pandemic. So this is a great enhancement and improvement to that to continue to provide safe dining options for our communities. Do we have any questions for Melvin? All right, do we have a motion to support this funding?
This is Deidre Deering. I'll support the funding.
So you're making the motion. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
All right. Do we have support for the motion?
This is Roslyn. I'll support.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, any questions? Then I will ask for anyone who is dissenting from the motion to support the social zone enhancements, please speak now. All right, well, the motion is passed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, Tim, the next item on our agenda is the budget recommendation, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, good morning, everyone. It is it's budget season. So bringing forward to you today your fiscal year 22 budget that, of course, would begin on July 1. And a reminder that with your recommendation, the budget would go to the City Commission and then would come back to you for adoption at our next meeting. So you can go to the next slide, Amanda. Thanks. Just quick reminder on process. So we talk about this a lot, but just wanted to highlight the important work of our alliances in vetting the projects and priorities for the year. So we've been engaged with them. We're obviously engaged with them throughout the year, but started on budget discussions early in January. Next slide, please. And continuing to prioritize the work out of GR Forward. So that plan was adopted back in December 2015. So we're about halfway through that 10-year master plan and continuing to identify work and opportunities within the TIFA boundary to drive forward on the goals. As you're all familiar, much of the work that we talk about in the TIFA and that we're focused on has to do around the river, but also in public spaces and making sure that the infrastructure and streets and parks is top notch. So we'll continue to focus on those, and that's much of what you see in your fiscal year 22 budget. Next slide. You can go to the next one as well. Thanks. So looking at revenues, so for the fiscal year 22, what we've identified total revenue amount of just north of $550,000. That includes property tax increment, also the personal property losses that is reimbursed by the state of Michigan, as well as our interest on investments. For comparison, you see what we brought in fiscal year 21. I'll just point out that our property tax increment projections are just those. Those are estimates, and we'll know the actuals once the property tax bills go out. So they could be a little bit higher. In addition, we do have a little over $2 million in fund balance. And so total available for expenditures this year would be a little over 2.6 million. As proposed, we're looking at just under $751,619 to be exact, is what's included in the budget. I will also point out that as we start to talk about projects, we hope there will be additional opportunities that come forward. There are conversations currently happening around new infrastructure that may be needed to help support spectrum investment. They're obviously just outside of the boundary to the south, but there may be utility work, street work that feeds into that new development that may be required. So as conversations happen, as we learn more, we can of course bring those back to you for consideration and possible budget amendments. But as of today, what we know, that's what we've included in your fiscal year 22 budget. Next slide, please. As you see here, a breakdown between projects, GR Forward goals, and what was identified in the spreadsheet as ongoing and committed expenditures. Those amount to about 16% of your overall budget and include things like the annual audit fees, estimated legal fees, and then general fund support for the city, as well as staff support for DGRI. So that's in red, and then the remainder would be for projects. Next slide, please. And then in the context of GR Forward, you see here the breakdown. So apologies, this is tough to read, but on goal 1 in the blue, that's river related. Goal 2 is neighborhood development support, so district enhancement grants, infrastructure improvements. Goal 3 is really streetscape focused. And then goal 5 is primarily for park improvements at Canal Street, but also we have a line item in there for urban recreation. Next slide, please. So just some images to support that work. Andy touched on a lot of what we're thinking about for the river for this year. So really a continuation of the governance discussions that are ongoing. So river governance support, also looking at equity framework. So having conversations with stakeholders around how we can embed equity into the river conversations from the beginning. Also putting together a corridor framework plan, benefits analysis, as well as the community engagement work that you just supported. On the goal 3 side, we have line items and placeholders for bike infrastructure, as well as streetscape improvements. We're obviously going to continue to support the Dash through transit enhancement, line item. And then also public realm improvements, so focusing on Canal Street Park, but hopefully also identifying other projects that relate to public space activation and public realm improvements. So that's the quick highlights of what is included in the budget. But I would be happy to take any questions or have some additional conversation if any members want to discuss further.
Eliana, I see you have a hand up.
I do. So I wanted to kind of take us back up to a 30,000-foot view and talk about priorities. And I know it's late in the game to make any big shifts now, but I hope most of you are aware of the Housing Next report and the need for an additional 9,000 units in the city over the next 5 years. And this is across all of the income spectrum, and being able to be sure that there's enough housing so that our lower income residents are not pushed out. I think it's valuable in terms of that second goal, having the downtown neighborhood to consider, is there any way, maybe next year, the following 3 years, in terms of the infrastructure to help make that happen. And frankly, I think that applies to the DDA as well. And I'm sorry I missed that public comment this morning.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Ileana. And, that is certainly something we can look at in the context of the TIFA. We don't have current development projects slated there, but again, as those things come together, as we see the additional investment in Monroe North, that's certainly something that we could work into the budget. Without having anything specific, I don't know that it made sense to add it currently, but we can, again, as projects or as conversations move on, we can always come back and have that discussion with the board and identify opportunities and possibly use some of the fund balance that exists.
And
thank you, I
Tim,
appreciate it.
Tim, is it fair to say that quite often developers that might be considering some residential project within the downtown, but even extended into Monroe North, will reach out to the DDA and Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. with their projects to identify opportunities? You're pretty well connected to that group, I guess, is my question.
Yeah. Most developments that happen in downtown will come both to the city and to DGRI to discuss incentives, opportunities for financial support. So those are certainly conversations we are involved with throughout the year.
And so if they did arise, it could come to this group for.
Absolutely, and yeah, to the extent that it aligns both with priorities of the TIFA as well as our statutory limitations to support projects, we're more than willing and happy to have that discussion. I would also point out that yesterday at the committee of the whole, there was a good update on the housing discussions that are happening at the city. These are obviously, as Ileana pointed out, this is a huge need both for the city but within the region. So if anyone has time, I'm sure you can identify or find that link now on the Facebook or the city's website. But yeah, it's the topic of conversation. Housing is a primary focus for a lot of people right now.
Yeah, Ileana, I would comment too. The DDA is fully engaged in those discussions. So yeah, I think we all recognize it's super important.
Thank you, Rick. Is there any other questions about the budget or discussions or clarifications that anyone would like? Okay, then I would ask for a motion to approve the budget from our board.
I'll move approval. This is Rick.
This is Jane, I'll support.
Thank you, Jane. So I'll give one last opportunity for questions. Then I will ask if any board members do not approve of this motion or dissent from it. Hearing none, the motion is carried. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Tim, your President and CEO reports next up.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few things I wanted to highlight. Maybe starting with, in addition to the housing update that was provided at Committee of the Whole yesterday, there was also an update on the micro mobility plans. So looking at the spin scooter rollout and conversations the city is having with an additional vendor to bring forward. So if that's of interest, I'd also encourage you to go check out the video link. And as those plans come together, I think to bringing in a new vendor, we're happy to keep you posted. But if any of you have been downtown recently, we know, or you know, how popular the scooters have been to date. So that's exciting to hear that that is continuing to move forward. I believe e-assist bikes are also going to be a component of that rollout. So keep an eye out for that. A couple of other things to highlight. The Perigo groundbreaking, so just south of our district, but at Michigan and Monroe, is set to happen today, I believe. So you'll see that work getting underway to go along with the earlier phases of that project. So exciting to see that work happen. In addition, the Spectrum development near the neighborhood, I should say, did get an important approval at Planning Commission last week. So that continues to move forward. And we are excited to see that work happen and welcome them to the neighborhood very soon. I think the last thing I wanted to highlight was that Art Prize venue registration is underway currently. I believe the final day to register to be a venue is tomorrow. So if you know anyone or if you yourself want to be involved with that, definitely go check out the Art Prize website. Those were the highlights of what I had, but again, happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Tim? All right, thank you, Tim. The next item is public comment. Do we have any public on the meeting that have a comment to make to the group? All right, thank you. Board member discussion. Is there any items for the good of the board that you'd like to bring up?
Sean, I'd just like to encourage everybody to participate in the park cleanup this weekend. Monroe North is participating on Saturday from 10 to 1. If you're interested in joining the group, we're going to gather at Monroe Community Church at 10 a.m. The Business Association is providing some bottled water, some granola bars, some fresh fruit, and we're just going to go out and clean up those parks. And if there happens to be a little extra time, we're going to move farther into the neighborhood. So if you're interested, join us at 10 o'clock on Saturday.
Great. Thank you, Deidre. That's I know it's an annual thing they do every year, and it's very appreciative and impactful for the neighborhood to get some of that winter winter trash that accumulated picked up and cleaned up. So thank you for your group. Is there anything else from the board members? Well, hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your participation and your commitment to the Monroe North TIFA.
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have
you
a good
too.
one.